Welcome back. So far we've focused on agroecology in a broader sense, and now we want to zoom into some specific farmers in the Dutch context and take a look at their lived experiences. I'm Jelmer, I'll be your host together with Veronica.
Hi.
But we also work together with
Isa.
Juliana.
So what we did was we spoke to various small-scale organic farmers in the Netherlands about their farming practices and what farming means to them. Most importantly, we also set out to explore the question of whether farming is just a job or perhaps something deeper. Is it a way of life, and what impact do their farming practices have on the way they live their lives?
I think nobody here sees it as a job. We all see it as a way of living. And that's because we don't make much money, and the job feels like a place where you go to and have to work and then get the salary in the end of the month. And here what you earn is something different from that. It's joy and the richness of being together and having lunch together and having support from each other and creating a place where it's nice to be. And if this was a job, then we made too many hours. There are too many hours we work to call it a job.
You just heard Janneke, the farmer that runs the Tuinhuis de Branding, a small self-harvesting garden on Schiermonnikoog, the island in the north of the Netherlands. The rest of our cast consists of 3 farmers in and around Wageningen. We have Chris from het Lichtveen, Klaas from the Nieuwe Ronde, and Esther from the Omuurde Tuin. All farmers reached a similar conclusion that their farming was not just a job, but much more.
Yeah, well, if we hear Janneke's response, it doesn't sound very appealing at first glance. I mean, not much money, many hours of work, especially considering the society that considers success based on income and status. Chris and Janneke both pointed out that when you run a small-scale market garden, you aren't just a grower, an accountant, a marketeer, a project manager, and an engineer. So you're many things at the same time. And together with that, you are faced towards many challenges. Klaas, for example, told us about the difficulties when it came to find suitable equipment for working in a small-scale farm.
Things what is challenging is a lot of subsidies. They are made for people that make a change. What if you are the change? Then you don't get the subsidy because you are already there. So why support these people? While they are the ones that are sticking out their necks.
That was Esther from the Omuurde Tuin. She touches on a problem that a lot of our farmers mentioned, that subsidies are hard to access for small-scale farmers. But there are also many other legislative hurdles. On Schiermonnikoog, for example, for Janneke, agriculture is defined as dairy farms and corn cultivation, so her garden doesn't even fit the definition of a farm there. And the municipality wants to make a change for this or make an exception, but actual formal changes to these policies just take a long time to go into effect. And the list also goes on. There's struggles to get access to land. There's labor intensity of their practices, dependency on volunteers, having to acquire experience for growing many types of crops. It's a long list of challenges, and they don't make it easy to run and maintain an agroecological farm.
Yeah, that's true. And despite these unique challenges, they persevere in their practices, bringing in a lot of joy and fulfillment and spreading that with the people around them. So what is it that allows them to live a happy and fulfilling life? And how do their farming practices add to their quality of life? Like Janneke mentioned at the beginning, the community can be a large contributor to their happiness. And similarly, Klaas also claimed that Self-Harvest Farm is mainly a social enterprise for him, and he emphasized the importance of community.
Through this process of self-harvesting, subscribers become sort of emotional owners of the place. And new subscribers always say that they talk about the farm and the veggies and the farmer, which is me then, and the land. And after a while, they start talking about our farm and our veggies and our farmer.
So, apart from this, there are other factors that contribute to their quality of life and what they take out of their work. So now we're going to listen to Chris as he describes some of the benefits that he receives from his farming practice other than monetary income.
For example, I don't really need to go to the gym because I'm working hard on the land, you know. I eat well from the land, so my income looks low, but I can access very high quality foods, which maybe I couldn't access if I worked in an office job on a kind of medium income, you know. So these things are also things that should be considered when you think about that whole livelihood of farming.
Chris was particularly articulate about the way he would compare this job to other types of work. So we're going to listen to him for a little more and see how he expresses what it means to him in that sense.
Yeah, it is a way of life because farms or ecosystems move in different rhythms than a 9-to-5 office culture. So in the summer, I'm going to be here 10 hours a day because that's the attention that the farm needs. But in the winter, I'm going to be here 1 hour a day because then I don't have much to do. So it's a different concept in terms of scheduling. And you have to move away from this idea that we now got pushed. No, it's 9 to 5. At 5, I finish work, close my laptop. It's done for the day because it's good for my mental health to not think about it and do something else. With a farm, maybe in the evening you still have to close the tunnel, you still have to water the seedlings. But it doesn't have to be a burden on your mental health if you build it into your lifestyle well, I think. And it's not easy, for sure. I mean, I have many friends who struggled with burnout in this kind of farming. It's very real, so I don't want to belittle that reality. But I think precisely by looking at farming as a lifestyle, we can try to address those issues.
Well, it seems clear then that for Janneke, Klaas, Chris and Esther, the way they farm and the way they take care of the land is an actual way of life. And through the podcast, we've seen that agroecology can be many things, a science and a movement, for example. And as social movements, there are different positionality within it. And in the Dutch context, we can see multiple identities and experiences can coexist. And among these farmers, we see that their positionality differs in terms of degrees of their engagement with the movement.
Yeah, this is very true. And we also, something interesting about our farmers is also that none of them really had a farming background or came from a farming family. And we really see how that influences the way they understand their work. Chris was, for example, a trained anthropologist, and he had a lot of experience talking about agroecology in an academic sense and in the context of policy making. But he turned to actually farming because he felt like he missed that practical experience. But as a result of his background, he really explicitly connects all these tenets of agroecology to what he's doing on the land. Esther studied forestry at Wageningen University, and she was very engaged in working together with nature, and she was always looking for ways to improve her practice. And when agroecology started getting formalized as a movement, she realized that she was already working in many of those ways. And with it, she really found a community to connect to that was similarly motivated by care for the natural environment and people. And she strongly identified with because of that. At the same time, Klaas and Janneke don't really identify with the label or don't actively use it to describe themselves, because for them it's more of another label that you can put in different farming practices, and they rather focus on what they find most important. Klaas is highly driven by caring for his community. He does have an organic label because he likes that as a part of his identity, but beyond that he doesn't identify with agroecology. Janneke describes her farm very much as local and sustainable, and she's very motivated by this care for the earth and the environment and the people and creatures that she shares it with.
Mm-hmm. And regardless of their degree of identification, they all have in common a strong purpose and strong intrinsic motivations to leave a positive mark on the earth and on the creatures living in it. So their farming is not just a way to feed people, but truly to care for the environment and living beings of the present moment and of the future, striving for stronger community ties, innovation, advocacy and education towards a deeper connection with the earth and the food system as well. They all agree that farming practices contribute to the well-being, both the well-being of the environment as well as a communal well-being of humans. And we've seen that internationally there have been studies done in Brazil where similar observations were claimed. In fact, in a paper called Agroecology as a Philosophy of Life, the authors claimed that farmers highlighted the positive impact of agroecology when it comes to their well-being, and posed it as an alternative narrative of how to pursue a good life, contrary to the dominant narrative that capitalism imposes on us. They all affirm that agroecology goes far beyond the simple practice of caring for the land. It's more than science. It's a movement and is a whole way of life.
So when we look back at all these concepts and the experiences that we've discussed throughout this podcast, we see many challenges, but we also see a lot of joy, care, inspiration, hope, and dedication. Farmers struggle with the impacts of climate change, legislation, how to cope with an uncertain future. Some accept the land that they took care of for many years will look very different after they're gone. Others turn towards very specific practices, for example, adopted in tropical areas to face an uncertain future. One lasting message we want to leave you with is from Esther.
Sometimes I say, like, we're not only growing plants, we're also growing people. But these are not things that you get paid for. But it's really good for the energy.